Well, good morning, everybody. I think it's the 24th of April. You know me, I hardly can keep track. But anyway, it's Tuesday, and it's actually a holiday here in Belarus, so there's less people around. Look at this garage area here, like kind of deserted. You'd think a lot of men would be here doing something, working on their cars or doing whatever they're doing here. Look at this, there's a little alleyway. I'm going to sneak through here. There's a garage area over there too. I can see through there. So let's see what we can find here. But anyway, there's a lot of news, a lot of crazy stuff going on, I tell you. As you know, well, big news to a lot of us is that Tucker Carlson was, let's just say, released from Fox. Who knows whose choice that was? But I think it was probably a mutual choice. I think Tucker Carlson is going to say that. He'd either say that for reasons to keep any kind of arguments down, or just to I don't know. It's probably more one-sided. I think it was probably more based on Fox News. Well, Tucker Carlson has got a very big penchant now for trying to tell the truth as best he can. So he might just come right out and say, well, it's mainly because of those claims that I made about these Dominion voting machines. I wasn't even going to talk about Tucker Carlson yet. I was going to save that till the end, but you know, that's the big story. And I was going to start in talking about things a little differently. I was going to try to tie in this what's going on in the world now, in the world of religion. And this has actually been going on for quite some time. I was mentioning this back during the war in Syria, because the way I see it, and I tried to bring it to some people's attention, they kind of missed the point. I was seeing this Syrian war as a parallel war, not just regime change for Syria, but also it's a war on Christianity more than even Islam. But it was also a war on Islam, as you see. This ISIS, they tell us that they were Islam, fundamentalist Islamic groups. They just happen to have, a lot of them have British accents, especially the leadership, and had a very, very strong base in Israel. And whenever the top commanders got injured, they got their medical attention in Israel, and their black ninja pajamas and their little black flags that they waved around were all made in Israel, you know. But they were fundamentalist Islamic terrorists, anti-Semitic, that never killed any Jews. Strange, isn't that? I guess they just never got around to it, you know. They were doing terrible things to Orthodox Christians. Oh gosh, isn't that strange? Hey, that kind of rings a bell. What's going on in Syria right now? You know, getting rid of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, and now they have the Orthodox Church of Ukraine. That was established by some guy, well, a couple guys, you know, Mike Pompeo. Strange, he ran the CIA at that time, didn't he? That's odd. And it was also Petro Poroshenko, you know, that guy that was the leader of Ukraine at the time, and saying that how delighted he was when they were bombing and killing especially children in the Donbass area, you know. But he is establishing a church, so I guess he's really a nice guy after all. Anybody that has something to do with church and talks about that, they're all nice guys. They always are, aren't they? Isn't that what it is? So when anybody ever mentions Jesus or God or anything, then everybody stops and gets on their knees, and at least is tempted to get on their knees and start praying and all that. You know, Jesus is also a part of the Muslim church, so that's how that works out too. It's terrible, you know. Let's be honest, you know, it's a terrible thing that they use this. I'm going to be getting more into religion during this. This is probably going to be a long video, so you got to get ready for this, boys. You got to get ready for this one, this long one, because I'm going to be talking about Africa as well. So, but I'm jumping around. I had these notes written out. Had a way, I've never been here before. Had a way what I was going to talk about this, but it's all different. Now look at this. I've never been here. It's a bunch of grass here. Somebody is going to be doing some kind of work, apparently with paving something here. They have rocks in there. Very odd. A little pile of rocks over there. I don't know. But anyway, let's keep going here. How I was going to start off. I was going to start off with saying, in the beginning was the Word. You know, a religious statement coming out of the Bible. And then we're going to talk about freedom of the press, not just the Bible. You know, in the beginning was the Word. Does that have something to do with the press when you get rid of Tucker Carlson? Come on, car. There's some guy staring at me over there. I thought I'd get away from a lot of people by coming here. People looking like I'm a street prostitute or something like that. I'm a prostitute, not a prostitute. So, you know, the first time you hear this, in the beginning was the Word, you know, it sounds like some poppycock. What is poppycock? You know, that's a word too. But it's like, what the heck is that supposed to mean? In the beginning was the Word. And I think you kind of dismiss it because you start to think, well, what kind of a statement is that? What does that mean? You know? And if it's me, you know, I start to think, you know, I like kind of language. It's all very perplexing, and how powerful language is, and how it changes people's minds, and how it directs people and causes them to do crazy stuff. And it all starts with language. So in the beginning, it was the Word, you know. It's how human mentality is steered. If you don't have words, if you can't communicate, you know, you're lost. You know, you can maybe communicate with sign language, but you don't get that far. You know, you're never quite sure what's to be conveyed unless you have an established sign language. Somebody making some noise over there. So, yeah, free speech. Look at that. It's even been granted to Joe Biden, even though nobody's been able to figure out what the heck he's talking about most of the time. I don't know. Only he can know. Isn't that something? You have a president putting things out. A lot of time, only he knows what he's talking about. But yet, a lot of us are supposed to act like we know what he's talking about. It's sort of like the emperor has no clothes or something like that. The emperor has no speech. No, but I tie this in, you know, a lot of times, you know, at the beginning was the Word and all that. So you talk about, say, this wokeism right now, and you know that there's 70 genders, 72 or whatever they talk about. But can anybody name these genders? You can get male, female, hermaphrodite, and you know, I think I don't know, is that a dead end? Anyway, you get to three. You get to three genders, and I don't know that anybody can go any further than that. Pretty soon there's going to be some joker that's gonna put a name to all of them. You know, but because gay, lesbian, whatever, bipolar, I don't know. I don't even know. Bi something or other. Bipolar. Whatever this, all of this stuff, it's that's not a gender. That's just some sort of a sexual preference. Oh, I love clouds. Look at this. Can I show this to you? I don't know why that is, but they have beautiful skies in Belarus. At least when it's not overclouded so badly. So. Yeah, if you ask Joe Biden, for example, what to explain himself, nobody ever has the guts to do that. But if you could, I think you'd probably end up being more confused afterwards. But how could he have been more coherent when he had that debate with Trump? I don't know that he had anything like in his ear with people saying, "Repeat after me." I don't know that they did. I don't think I saw that. But obviously there must be some sort of a drug that can bring him back to reality. I mean, that's my take on that. You know. Yeah, so I don't know. I think religion, you know, Christianity talks about in the beginning was the Word, and I'm sure that there's probably something that alludes to the same thing in Islam and other religions as well. I remember you hear about some people wrongly, like they like to say wrongly, they like to misrepresent something that Muhammad said. He was one time, I guess, sitting at an oasis or something somewhere by a well, and there was some worldly guy came up to him that is not in Islamic religion at that time, and asked Muhammad. They said, "Well, Muhammad, what is it like in heaven?" And Muhammad looked at this person and saw what they find as pleasure, his worldly pleasure, lots of women, and whatever. So Muhammad said it in such a way that that this man would understand. He said something like, "Oh, can you imagine having 40 virgins and all this sort of thing?" So again, you have language here, and then now they, a lot of these Zionist or anti-Muslims maybe in Israel like to use that as that the Muslims believe that if they blow themselves up, that they will be rewarded with 40 virgins or something in heaven or whatever. So it's all twisted around. There's a whole bunch of things twisted around about that. And the only thing I'm saying is we should try to be a little bit more accurate and understanding about different religions and not go along with some sort of an explanation that you hear somebody talking about on the road or something. Someone that's not in that religion doesn't know anything about what they're talking about. Just to badmouth it. People do that with everybody. You can talk about George Soros, though. That's a different sort of a deal. He was born into Judaism, but as a teenager, even at least as a teenager, of course, he apparently did not like Jews, even though he was born a Jew. And of course, I've seen interviews with him, and he admits he's an atheist. He doesn't believe in God, and that sort of explains what's going on in the world when you see this this antagonism against religion, because that's exactly what this is. This is a war against religion. It's a war against Christianity as well as Islam. So you have this ISIS and Al-Qaeda, and I've even heard Muslim people talk about, even before ISIS came about, they said that Osama bin Laden was not Muslim, but that's based on the accusations that we have of what Osama bin Laden did. And the FBI, according to the FBI, they don't have any evidence that Osama bin Laden did anything, had anything to do with 9/11, but yet we're all told to believe that. Even people I respect a lot, they believe that. I would even suspect maybe Tulsi Gabbard believes in that. I don't know. It's just like Trump believing that Soleimani, this general from Iran, was killing innocent Americans. Military is a different story, but I don't even know if he was doing that. But I don't. I'll tell you what. I don't just buy anything anymore. When you hear about, what is it called, the Lavon affair, that was 1967, and I know there's some of you out there, Dejoko, and I think Jai, maybe, if you're still watching. A lot of you already know about this, and that was where that group again in Israel. Not because I don't want to badmouth Israel all the way, because there's a lot of good people in Israel. If you even read the Haaretz newspaper, there's a lot of things that are very contrary to what this Zionist branch of Judaism, perpetrates, or maybe even the state of Israel, just like the state of the United States. A lot of people in America, and now Germany, they don't go along with what their government is all about. So the Lavon affair is when, that was in 1967, when Israel was using terrorism to kill Americans in order to get the United States on the side of Israel militarily against Egypt. And also in that year, believe it or not, it's a very exciting time. A lot of terrible things that luckily did not happen. The United States almost dropped a nuclear bomb on Cairo, Egypt. It was only minutes away, and it was just called off at the last minute. Very shocking stuff. So just so you know about that. And that's when Israel attacked an American ship, and I believe they killed 74 people, the USS Liberty. And of course, that's been tried to be banished out of the pages of US history. President Johnson at the time did everything, discredited and did everything about any of those soldiers even that were on there. Very, very negative time of US history. So I wasn't even going to talk about that. Gosh, here I'm going off on these tangents. You know, I should probably do a rehearsal for one of my videos. Otherwise I get myself lost here. You know. We'll see. Like I said, I was trying to talk. What I was hoping to do is to try to tie in some religious sort of views with you know, like, and freedom of speech, you know, together, because like I said, it's what's going on today is a big attack on religion. And you know, the founding fathers of America, you know, they established all in the same document, you know, what is the First Amendment and then the Fourth Amendment, you know, like a freedom of speech, a freedom of religion, and you know, freedom of assembly, all kinds of things like that. And you know, but it's, you know, and a lot of it was just going to be about you know, communication, and you know, even guesses on how early humans communicated with each other. They didn't have to make cave drawings, you know. They could make sounds, so that they made sounds for various needs and wants and things like that. So you know how important religion is. And Tucker Carlson, you know, he was released because he's very dangerous. They don't like the truth. Tucker Carlson was saying how he, more over time, he got a penchant for telling the truth. And obviously most reporters are not like that. There's so much stuff all over right now in the Russian press, because the Russians liked Tucker Carlson because he did tell the truth, and the rest of the media goes out of their, well, not, you know, Laura Ingraham, I can't say anything that bad about her, but anyway, the rest of the press in America, they go out of their way to lie to you. And and just yesterday, before I heard about Tucker Carlson, I was watching Gonzalo Lira, and he didn't mention it because it hadn't happened yet, or he hadn't heard about it. I don't know when it happened. I believe it might have happened on Friday, but nobody talked about it until just yesterday. You know, the release of you know, Tucker Carlson being released, and Gonzalo Lira was talking about how more and more it's just going to get worse and worse. Censorship and misinformation from the West. You know, it's not going to get better, it's going to get worse. And he was suggesting to get out of America. In the old days, you know, you talk about the Soviet Union, and apparently, you know, everybody was able to read between the lines in the you know, state-sponsored papers, the Pravda. So they knew what the truth is to a large extent, and that contributed to the collapse of the Soviet Union as well. And right now, everybody, well, not everybody, any kind of a intelligent person knows that they're being lied to in the United States. But I'd be interested in finding out what the numbers are. How many people really know what the truth is, and how many don't? And I think they take these polls and ask how many people, you know, believe what the U.S. press is telling them, and I think it's not very many. I think it's less than 30%. I think it was like a 23 or something like that. So there's a 23% or maybe dummies. I don't know. I don't know. I tell you, I don't know how much, because I don't watch this. I don't watch the U.S. this news. I've seen online some things about Tucker Carlson. Never owned a TV for over 40 years. I never saw any sense in owning a TV, really. You know, you can see a lot of things online, and I was too busy anyway. You know, you got to get work done. You got to go to work. I can't sit there and watch TV. You know, and if I'm not going to watch the news, you know, sure, there are probably some good things, but you don't know what you're going to watch ahead of time. I don't know. I just don't want to waste my time. Maybe what I'm trying to say is whoever controls the narrative can control people's minds. And you can talk about Alex Jones, InfoWars, very appropriate. And Gonzalo Lira also mentioned Alex Jones, and he was sort of saying him like he's sort of a nutcase, but he turned out to be right a lot of the time. Well, Alex Jones he just sort of, it's not that he was wrong. He was right. He was right most of the time. He just sensationalized things a lot too much. And I'm still suspicious about this Sandy Hook stuff. And then, you know, they sued him for, you know, currently it's $1 billion. $1 billion. And they took him off the air, of course, quite a while ago, and he was getting way too popular. I remember I watched the, I think it was the election between you know, the voting on voting night between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, and Alex Jones had a far bigger audience than CNN or any of those. So that was very fascinating. I don't even know how they can determine how many people are watching some show or not, but CNN, you know, even when they force feed you, they force feed it down your throat. You know, when you go stand in some line in the bank or something like that, and I think it comes free or something when you get some sort of a cable connection. It's always CNN and some of these other propaganda outlets they come along with the package, I believe. You know. But the collective West, you see how they're attacking. It's the deep state. You can call them the establishment, the deep state, the collective West. They're attacking religion and truth speech right now. And it's not that they're both analogous, you know, but trying to knock down these two pillars of society will give them much, much, much greater control as they had in the past. I remember, I think, what was it, more than 10 years ago, the Rockefellers, maybe it was the Rockefeller Foundation, they established some sort of an agency or another foundation, I don't know, called something about for the protection of religion. Maybe it was Foundation for the Protection of Religion. And when you looked at what they were doing, it wasn't really anything to do with protecting religions. It was all about promoting climate change. So climate change as a religion, that is apparently, and it has been for quite some time, that is the new religion. The new religion is to get you to follow climate change. That should be your beliefs now, climate change, that you have to pay higher taxes to the billionaires, to the establishment. Well, most of you that are watching this video, you know that all this stuff is true that I'm talking about. It's just how do you categorize it? How do you put it in perspective and try to see get a clear line of what's really going on and what they're doing to us, you know, or trying to do to us. And somebody wrote, I mean, I tell you what, some of these comments that you people write, it's so fantastic. I think this guy named Kyle, I even get some comments on other, you know, in other things. You know, of course, I write to a couple of the other guys, Gonzalo Lira and Emil Kosman, and they, you know, get their WhatsApps or whatever they call it. I was getting invitations from Russell Brand quite a bit of the time, but I didn't establish one. I should have established something. I like Russell Brand a lot as well, but yeah. But how do you figure this out? How do you put it all into a nice, neat little package to find out, you know, what the objectives are of all these people and where we're going, what's going to happen? I know Gonzalo Lira, he likes to to consider these sort of things too. I love Gonzalo Lira. You know, I like a lot of people. You know, I listen to Scott Ritter too. Put things very, very well. And you know, Mike Jones of I, Earl Grey. And oh, there's so many of them, and I shouldn't start going down a list because I probably forget a lot of them. Who woke me up at the very beginning a long time ago was Mike Rivero, and he's got a site called whatreallyhappened.com, and he has a podcast as well. And unfortunately, I haven't been watching that for a long time. And a lot of people, as we know, we watch the Duran and Alex Cristoforo. I like Alex Cristoforo a lot. For some reason, he's I have some. We're connected. No, I have a. I can sometimes even know exactly the words he's going to use before he says them because I don't know, we're connected. I don't know, I like Alex Cristoforo, and he seems to be a great person. He's got a great personality, and you know, that brings to mind, before a lot of times even if I have notes, I want to mention these things because there's little things that I just forget to mention a lot, and you can't write down everything and follow this. You know, I don't even know how Alex Cristoforo and the others do this, but I sure can't. I can't remember because there's just way too many small points. But he's talking about a small town girl, you know, living in a lonely world that took the midnight train going anywhere. And then there's a small town boy, I think, born and raised in South Detroit, also took a midnight train, you know, and these people ran into each other. I guess it was Robert Kagan and Victoria Nuland, and you know, their dream to destroy Russia, and to I don't even know I don't know if they're out to do anything good for Ukraine. She might have some sort of compassion. I think she's got some Ukrainian ancestry, Victoria Nuland, you know. But the last video, you have to catch that from Alex Cristoforo. He was talking, I think, about Victoria Nuland in relation to Africa and what's going on in the Sudan right now. As you know, he put up this timeline, and it was very interesting, and that tells you everything. It's when Russia, you know, that has good relations to the Sudan. Sudan, it's a very important country culturally too. And so Russia was going to put a naval base there. And the U.S. got wind of that, so they went in there and immediately, and I think they coaxed a certain faction of the military onto their side, you know, with lots of money and promises, and however they always do that. We're going to put you in control. We're going to make you take over the government because we love you, and we will do everything for you. Make all these promises. I don't, you know, I'm not exactly sure how the U.S. always does this. I know little bits, you know, because my old days in the military, you know, and you know, you see the same theme over and over again. You'd think that some of these other people that they are able to sway, you know, they figure out what's going on, and they don't go along with this. But of course they do, and I think a lot of people, you see how a lot of this works. And you have, like, you see in Ukraine, a lot of corruption there. And you have these different groups. You have the Israeli Zionists on one side, and then you have the Nazis on the other side. You have the neo-libs, and then the neoconservatives. And of course, most of that is all bound together by someone who is in all of those groups, which is George Soros. He's a neoliberal, neoconservative, neo-Nazi, maybe not even a neo-Nazi, because he was around and he was involved when the real Nazis were around back in the old days. He was a teenager, you know, back in the old days, and he would turn his fellow, I don't know what you call him if he was an atheist, but he would turn the Jews over to the nasties. And you're not really allowed to talk about old Gorgeous George so much. So I hope this is going to work out. But old Gorgeous George, you know, like I mentioned before, he was tied very close to Victoria Nuland. And a lot of these people, you know, they have this same religion, and it's in Judaism. And he's not Jewish, so I don't know how that ties in with that, you know. But you know, most all the people that are running Ukraine are Jewish. And a lot of the Israeli Jews, because the Ukrainian Jews are tied with the Nazis, I think a lot of the Israeli Jews, they're actually, they despise old Zelensky and his crew there. I don't know. You know, they have these different state interests, and sometimes your state interests outweigh your personal interests, and when you're in charge of a country, maybe you have to think of it in that way. I don't know. Yeah. You have to sit there and look at all this information and try to tie all these things together yourself. I could do it too, and I just know they're a bunch of nasty people. So, but talking about Africa, I was going to talk a lot about Africa, you know. And I talked about Mike Pompeo already, you know, being a CIA guy. And I got this message from somebody, Stanley Johnson, name, I guess I can mention that, about what's going on in Kenya. And I had heard nothing about that. And then I looked it up a little bit. And then, you know, a day or two ago, and then I got a little bit more interested. And then even today, they came out with even more information about this. And you're probably going to hear this. You should hear this from Alex Christoforo or from Alexander Makuras. He has a longer broadcast, so he would maybe go into this as well, because this is significant. It's a cult religion in Africa. I should go by my notes. I wrote this stuff down, and I should go by my notes so I don't miss something here. So. Okay, and it's like, you know, you see these fake religions that the U.S. established already with the CIA, Al-Qaeda. Everybody knows that was, you know, that was started by the CIA. Everybody knows that one. That's for sure. But let me tell you that ISIS is as well. You know, and you already know that. Anybody watching me knows this. You can just see, based by evidence. You know, another thing like what Jesus said. And I said I'm not really a religious person, but I love Jesus because he said so many things, and you got to follow a lot of his wisdom, and it just enlighten you about how the world really works. You know, to know them by their fruits. And you see the news of the United States talking about, oh, we've got to get this ISIS and all this sort of thing. But then again, well, why are they helping ISIS? Why did ISIS grow in leaps and bounds while the USA was bombing Syria? And they didn't start to dissipate until Russia started bombing, you know, ISIS in Syria. The USA was not bombing ISIS. They were helping ISIS. And ISIS, you know, do they even know that they're ISIS, this Islamic State? And then you have this, what was this guy, al-Baghdadi? You know, all these weird looking guys. You know, they had Osama bin Laden. You know, you have to have a beard. You know, if you don't have a beard, you know, you have no legitimacy in being some fundamentalist, evil, Islamic type of guy or whatever. You know, so, but anyway, enough said about that. But you have, you know, and of course these people were doing rapes, murders, killed a lot of Muslims. You know, like I said, they destroyed Muslim shrines. They spoke English very well, got along really, really good with the Israelis and the Jews and stuff. So. Yeah, but anyway, this stuff is happening in Africa. Let's see what I have to kind of go by my notes for this one. I don't want to mess this one up. As we know, the news, it gets heavily controlled no matter what the U.S. independent news even purveys. You know, like me, there was apparently U.S. intelligence linked religious events in Africa, and I have not yet really seen too much. You know, you just kind of can go by the playbook that that the United States is probably involved in this in Africa. You know, this is a Jim Jones event. You know, but instead, I think Jim Jones, you know, I'll talk a little bit about that one. Well, let me talk about him first. Jim Jones, he was an American declared preacher. I guess he might have gotten he might have been an official preacher, you know. At least back in those days, you could just send in $5 and get yourself a certificate that you're a religious preacher or something. I don't know if they still have that. I'm sure they do. So pay $10, I don't know, and you know, then you're a religious leader. So he had, I think he was a leader of some obscure church or whatever like that. Anyway, a very persuasive guy, I guess. And Jim Jones, his church, you had to turn in all your worldly possessions. You know, it's sort of like Scientology. Give up everything, give it to the church. You know, anything that's worth anything. And well, as it happened, these people, and he bought with a lot of this money. So you start, that's a self-starter business. So with a lot of the wealth that he got from these people that he convinced to join this church, he bought a big plot of land in Guyana, the jungles of Guyana. Very wild country. If you don't know about Guyana, most of it's only accessible by airplane, maybe helicopter. Vast forests, very wild place. It's just as wild as any of the most wildest places in Africa, such as Kenya, where, strange that they choose these areas, And some of these cults were in Oregon, but, I like Oregon. But fly. But anyway, these people in I'll tell you, I'll stop right there and let me go into the one from Africa, and then I'll continue with the Jim Jones. So these believers in Africa, they were told that if they starve themselves to death, that they will go to heaven and personally meet Jesus. So, and there's a lot of cults in Kenya, and it's becoming like an epidemic, unfortunately. And it really makes you wonder how did, I tell you, the U.S., they might even be there. This might even be an experiment on how they can get control of people's minds. How do you convince so many people to do this? How can you convince people to do these crazy things? It's just astonishing. That's one thing that really interests me. How do people get locked into this sort of stuff? And you would hope that very early on you would start to catch, well, this is not right. It's not really my cup of tea, and I'm going to get out of it. But this leader in Africa, his name was Paul Mackenzie, and sounds like some sort of a Scottish or something, but he's got another name on top of that. It's an African type of name. I didn't write it because I probably can't pronounce it. But he's I believe a native of Kenya, and he was arrested on April 14th this year. But he was arrested 2 times before that, and in relation to deaths of children that starved to death. So, yeah. But this was a mass murder suicide sort of thing, and Jim Jones. This was Jim Jones. His mass murder was in 1978, and he had established this colony in Guyana. It was a socialist colony. I mean, it's very easy to, socialism. You can kind of start from scratch a lot easier than a lot of other forms of governing, I guess. And people lived in a commune, and his church was called the People's Temple, and it was established in 1955, but he started building this in 1974. This commune, whatever that he had going in Guyana, and at some point in time, this. There was a U.S. representative. His name is Leo Ryan. I'm not sure what state. I don't think maybe it didn't say that. But anyway, he flew to Guyana to investigate what was going on because of, a lot of these reports about what this sort of thing. So he flew there, and, he took, of course, a few people with him, some of his own staffers, I believe, and they wanted to investigate that, the People's Temple. And to find out if people were being held there against their will, and he found people that were. So he was trying to leave with these people, and the followers of Jim Jones hijacked him and killed them. They killed all these people. So, and I think that's probably when it started becoming well known. And at that time, right after this, they killed this U.S. government representative and the people, and then the people that are leaving this cult. Jim Jones, he got his followers to take poison to kill themselves, mass suicide, and I think he said their next body or their soul would be taken by spaceships up to heaven or something like that. I think I remember that. Very, there's very much you can read about that. It's incredible just to study this sort of thing, how this stuff happens. And you know, this one in Africa is of course not quite as big yet, but the one in Guyana, there was 909 people were suicided, and over 300 of those were children. You know, obviously these children didn't know any better. They told to drink something and they killed them. You know, and so far in Kenya, as of, was it today, early this morning, or was it last night, or whatever, they have now 73 bodies. First they started out with 30, you know, or 20, and then they've been finding more and more, and it was 50 something, and then as of this last days it was 73, you know, and all these people are starved to death. You know, mostly they're just left bones, and they rescued some of these people, and I believe there were like 23 of them, and some of them didn't want to be rescued. So it makes you really wonder what's going to happen. What more information we're going to hear. And this, his church was called the Good News International Church, and he tried to get as many followers as possible. You know, sort of like trying to establish a city, and the plot of land, I believe. Let's see if I wrote it down. I think it was like 800 acres. And they're a so-called Christian church. You know, 33 were rescued. Many did not want to, and they still believe that if they starve themselves to death, that they're going to go meet Jesus. So, this McKenzie, of course, he's still alive. He's not skinny at all. You know, and I think he was, like I said, they took him into captivity first when these children starved, and he was released, believe it or not, at those times. Maybe they couldn't find anything to pin on him. And the president of Kenya, his name is William Ruto, he said Mackenzie is nothing but a terrorist or a criminal that postures as a pastor. And they talk about a lot of these people that are like this. All of them are like that. You know? And that also makes you think about this Orthodox Church of Ukraine, you know, established by the CIA. And the person that wrote to me in St. Vincent, they have very smart person. He knows. I was talking to him when I lived down there, and he's very aware of what's going on in the world. A lot more so about Africa than I am, you know, due to his ethnicity as well. And a lot of people are much more informed than that. I have to probably find some sites where I can actually get a better overview. This, but it makes you think of this Orthodox Church of Ukraine, you know, which is is also a heretical church, a heretical cult. And if you talk to people involved in the that are involved in the Orthodox religion, and you go back in history, these churches, the Orthodox churches, the Greek Orthodox Church, Syrian Orthodox Church, Russian Orthodox Church, Ukrainian Orthodox Church, these were all established from Jesus to the apostles to the churches. So there's a direct line that you can connect all of these churches, and they started in those times. I would imagine the Syrian church is probably through St. Thomas, I believe, an apostle of Jesus. And then I don't know if it was St. Peter would have established. I know that he was active in the Mediterranean after the death of Jesus. Anyway, these churches are all established in a lineage connected to Jesus, but not this new church in Ukraine, and of course not these cults in Africa as well. So, and ISIS and Al Qaeda, you know, Al Qaeda. I think these are just CIA creations, and the CIA did well at that, so they probably established now themselves a Christian church rather than just a Muslims one. Maybe that was just practice. They're practicing on the Muslims, you know, because they're a little bit different rules of establishment probably for Christians. And what were Mike Pompeo, what did he say? We lie, we cheat, we steal, you know. That's good to know. especially when you consider that he's the one that with Petro Poroshenko and some guy there was some minor church, Orthodox church official in Istanbul. So they went there and established this new church somehow through that person. Maybe that was able to be paid off or threatened or who knows what. So probably just to try to give it some legitimacy, even though it doesn't have legitimacy in the eyes of any Orthodox church. So that's why it's a heretical church, this one in Ukraine now. And then they're getting a lot of people, maybe by threat. How do they converse? How do they convert these people to become a part of this church? Yeah. So, and I'm sure that the nasties are laughing their head off. They're laughing their head off that they can get some followers to go along with this church. You know? Yes. Here I was going to talk about Tucker Carlson. Along with that, I was, like I said, I was trying to tie in freedom of speech and a lot of these things together. But I'm sure I mentioned also it has to, Tucker Carlson had to do with this voting machine stuff. So, and I remember during the night of that election, you had some places that 100% of the people voted, which of course that didn't happen. And I think they might have even had percentages where 107% of the people voted from a place. All of these elections, and you remember that there was a lot of apparently some election fraud in that vote when it was Al Gore and George Bush, but in the state, only in the state apparently of Florida, and it was the Republicans doing some kind of weird hanky-panky stuff, and now it looks like it's the Democratic Party, and they really went to town. I tell you what, and it's just if you say that there was voter fraud, in that election between Joe Biden and Trump, well, Tucker Carlson did, and he even implicated the voting machines. I don't know, maybe you're going to get in some trouble, but I remember. There were rallies. There were places where Donald Trump was doing a rally, and he'd get thousands and thousands, way over 10,000 people, even small areas. And Joe Biden had a rally in the same places, and he would get 10 people. He'd get 10 people, and yet Joe Biden, he won the vote there. And I don't know, because there were places Donald Trump was way ahead by 11:30 at night on voting day if you went to bed. So it looked like he was a shoo, and he was gonna win. He had like, I don't know, if I'm not mistaken, maybe it was like 80 some percent of the vote. And if you went to bed like at 11:30, sometime, and I think they even have the hour. I don't know if it was 2 o'clock in the morning or was it 4 o'clock in the morning, when there was a huge surge. The polls were long closed, but there was a huge surge for Joe Biden, and he came from way behind and surged over Donald Trump and won the election. So you thought that, it would be like all elections where, maybe by 10 o'clock at night, or even before that, you already knew who was going to win the election, and the vote really never changed. And, the trajectory never changed. Whoever was ahead at a certain time, very early on, they used to look at, I think it was New Hampshire, and I don't know if that was the primary vote or whatever, but whoever was ahead in some of these earlier states, and they were going to win. And it didn't turn out for the first time in U.S. history. Incredible. Incredible, people. So I don't know if I can say more about that. And there was another big story. And this is about the United States denying the press of Russia visas to come to the United Nations, which has always happened. And that is it's almost a sacred tenet that you have to give the press, the established press, visas to come, and report there, and they did it long in advance. And it's, I guess for some, I don't know, period of time, Russia is in charge of the chairing the United Nations Security Council, and they didn't allow them. And then apparently they also delayed Lavrov's plane, who was the guy in charge for at least that time period of the United Nations Security Council. They delayed his plane till the very last minute. They kept him in the air and they wouldn't let him land. And anyway, but he did get to land. And then he's talking about many, many issues, which is, you know, it's the elephant in the room that nobody ever really talked about here, you know. And it's not just, you know, the U.S. who talks about their freedom of the press, how much they support the freedom of press and freedom of this and freedom of that and religion, like I was just talking about. I don't know. But you know, the U.S. Constitution is already suspended anyway with the Patriot Act, probably in all forms. What do they say? What did George Bush say? It's a goddamn piece of paper. That's all that is, the U.S. Constitution. Anyway, they hate the Constitution. You know, Nancy Pelosi, she always invoked the Constitution when it served their goals and ignored it when it didn't. So that's how things work nowadays. I guess that's the rules-based order. Messed up stuff. I tell you what, it makes you sick when you start seeing all this. Somebody's pounding here. Maybe I'll go on the other side. So where do I go? Maybe in the shade? I don't even know what this symbol is. Something about this garage or something right back there. Yeah, if you can see that. Yes. What did he talk about? They didn't give the visas. And Lavrov was also asking, well, why is it that you have some of these areas that have the largest land mass? You know, and he wasn't talking about Russia necessarily, but he was talking about Africa. Huge amounts of people, the majority of the people in the world, and large land masses, but yet they have no representation on the Security Council, no permanent representation, maybe just like a 2-year, you know, whatever they have, these exchange countries. You know, one of them was actually St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and I would even talk about that a little bit. I might have mentioned that. Just to get, I'll tell you what, for St. Vincent and the Grenadines to become a temporary member of the United Nations Security Council for 2 years, and I'm not sure if that time has run out yet, but it's very strange that you saw around that time the Prime Minister virtually forcing vaccinations, That's why I had to leave, because he was doing everything to make your life miserable unless you got vaccinated. And like I said, they were talking about not letting anybody go into the grocery stores unless you were vaccinated. Can't travel unless you're vaccinated. You can't go in here, you can't do that, this, that, or the other thing unless you're vaccinated. And then he said, no, we're not forcing anybody. And of course they were already fired. They fired a lot of people from their jobs. You know, not just nurses, maybe public transportation people. They were trying to force that one. That, you know, they have passenger vans. If you don't get vaccinated, you know, you can't transport passengers. You can't drive a public transport. You can't, what was it, teachers and medical staff, public transportation, and that was just starting. And he wanted to keep on going down the line until he got 90% vaccinated. And I tell you what, my estimation, there's no doubt that that had something to do with the St. Vincent and the Grenadines getting on as a temporary member of the UN Security Council. There's other few things that were happening, very strange there, and changing the laws in order to allow forced vaccination, things like that. I mean, it was a bad time, and of course I had to go. I was thinking I would kind of maybe move anyway, because they have poor medical care there, and it's not really regulated. And I've seen way too many things happen, you know. You see people get released from the hospital and die in the parking lot of the hospital as they're leaving. And one friend of mine said he saw somebody giving birth to a baby outside the front door of the hospital, the main hospital. And I knew somebody that not really so much of a friend, a guy I talked to, a very nice guy. I maybe would have got to know him a lot better. But anyway, he had diarrhea. He went to the hospital. His sister took him to the hospital. They gave him the wrong medicine. They gave him a medicine that invokes diarrhea, and he himself to death. You know, even if it sounds funny, but yeah, he died from diarrhea because they induced worse diarrhea. They gave him the wrong medicine. So I've seen, there's some good stuff there, and highly, I tell you what, if I was living there, I would not be allowed to be talking about a lot of these mistakes and things that happened at the hospital and the medical care there. So, and the medications are coming, obviously, somehow, for some reason, as donations from the United States, I think, which, you know, if you have to get some medication, I don't know. I don't know if I would really be anxious to take it. You know, I'm highly suspicious of the medical, how do you say it, the pharmaceutical industrial complex, or whatever you want to say. It's not really safe anyway. Yeah, anyway, so Lavrov was talking about how the global South is underrepresented in underrepresented in the UN Security Council. They virtually have little or no voice. I don't know, there's nobody in, I don't think Brazil has a permanent membership. I should look that up. I should have looked it up before making this video, but being lazy. So, but who are the permanent members? You know, like Great Britain, United States, France, Russia, China. Can't really ignore Russia and China. I don't know, South Africa? No, I don't think so. Anyway, not South Africa for sure. Underrepresented. And he came up, no, it was somebody else. I don't think Lavrov would dare say this. I can't remember who said this, but there was somebody, and I think they're part of the Russian delegation, was suggesting that the United Nations be moved to a different country after, I don't think that was Lavrov saying that, after them denying press visas to come to the United States. When you're talking about this rules-based order, what does that mean? Nobody really knows. There's nothing really written down. It's basically just everybody has to do what the U.S. tells them to do. And of course you see Germany now. Germany is gone. Everybody knows Germany is gone. It makes you wonder who put these people in. Olaf Scholz, as I said, he's a very weak leader. There's no doubt about that. Very weak. And I think Alex Christoforou was saying, well, where is Olaf Scholz lately? How come we haven't heard anything from this guy? But you hear about Annalena Baerbock and Habeck, the Greens Party. You know, the Greens Party is now, I don't know, maybe they're green because of military. Military clothing is normally green. So maybe that's why they call them the Greens Party. They're nothing to do with the environment, really. Maybe they do have something to do. They think they have something to do with the environment. But Germany, unfortunately, is gone. Germany is gone, and it's going to become more evident as time goes by, because the energy costs are going to just drive everybody crazy. Everybody's going to be wanting raises, and because you can't pay for your energy anymore, because energy is going to be going up. You know, fuel costs go up. Fuel's already expensive, which means the food prices are all going to go up. Everything's going to go up. Cost of production. Germany comes up with a lot of good products like Bosch, and I think maybe they don't even sell those things here anymore. I don't think. So price-wise, it looks like Belarus, Russia, as you know, inflation is down very low in Russia, and I guess it has also slowed down a lot here. You know, some things have gone up, and then they hadn't gone up for a long time. I've been watching certain prices of, for example, they say in Great Britain, this is right down my alley. oops, not that, not that alley. But anyway, like oats, say rolled oats. I eat oatmeal in the morning. It's very cheap and it's very healthy, a lot of fiber, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, you can regulate how much sugar you put on yourself, make it like that. And, you know, it's filling. So, and it's mostly cheap. But they say that that is the sharpest price increase in England. And, you know, that's the food product that went up the most is oats, you know, oatmeal, basically. And of course here we have lots of different forms of oatmeal. We have oatmeal, well, oatmeal is, I guess, from oats, but then they have similar things that looks very, very similar, almost the same, but it's made from barley or it's made from rye. I eat the rye a lot. It's a little bit rougher, you know, but, and I don't really even cook it. I just put boiled water in it and then, you know, let it sit for some minutes. And, but there's all sorts of different grains, and it's actually made here in Belarus, and it's not that expensive. It's, I think, 500 grams is 30 cents for rye. 30 cents, and I think I have kind of a big bowl, so I can eat breakfast like 5 times on 30 cents. Can't beat that, baby. You know, and healthy-wise. Okay, so, but anyway, the price it was a little bit lower, I believe, and I think it went up, and then it went down, and it depends on what like there's buckwheat. I don't think you can really get buckwheat in the West, at least not in the United States. You really don't see it anymore, but they make a buckwheat cereal, and that's has benefits too, and I guess that will go even further. Really absorbent with liquids, you put that on, so I guess you can have a smaller bowl. Maybe you can eat more, but of course it costs more than twice as much, even over here. They got a lot of different grains over here that they don't really have over in the West. There's something in, I don't know what it's called in Russian. I think in Germany it's called hirsa, and they don't have that much really in Germany, and I don't think they have it at all in the United States. Whatever that is in U.S. In English. So anyway, you get a lot more variety and a lot of things over here than, you know, you get a lot more better variety of junk food in the United States. But here, even one of the good things is you get a huge variety of beer, very good beer. Oh, I shouldn't even talk about it. A nice hot day like this, you know, I think I'm going to go have a beer. Yes, people, I think I got to get running now. No, I'm not that bad. Just joking. But you know, Lavrov, like I was saying, let's get back into the regular subject here. Lavrov was saying that that U.S. can't fulfill their obligations, you know, maybe from their own constitution, in such as freedom of the press and all. So he was, I don't think it was him, but I think maybe through somebody else, but you know that it's the same sentiments that Vladimir Putin would have as Lavrov and a lot of these officials, Peskov, anybody, Maria Zakharova, that anybody would have in Russia, seeing what they do in the United States. Everything is weaponized. You know, they talk about Russia weaponizing gas. Russia didn't weaponize gas at all at the beginning. It sort of is now, of course, but they didn't have to, because look at who blew up the pipelines using a weapon to weaponize gas? I don't know. What do you call that? But the U.S. weaponizes everything. They weaponize the fact that the United Nations is located in New York. So everything is weaponized. You know? And then the U.S., they've tried, it's called projection, to always accuse your opponent or your enemy of what you are actually doing. So that's what the U.S. is all about. I remember Condoleezza Rice talking about when it was 2008 and Russia had gone into South Ossetia after the U.S. was using Saakashvili as a proxy to attack South Ossetia because they wanted Georgia to become a part of NATO. But part of the restrictions of NATO is there can't be any territorial disputes. So what happened was, during the Olympics, when Putin was over in Beijing and George Bush, they sent a highly modernized Georgian military into South Ossetia. First, they killed the Russian peacekeepers that were on the border, that were holding the peace with Georgia. And they are Georgian and Russian peacekeepers. And the Georgians killed them. They killed the Russians, the Russian side. Stabbed them in the back, literally stabbed them in the back. And then they invaded. And the invasion was going for 3 days before Russia had even gone there. And South Ossetia, most of the people there had Russian passports. And but it was loosely attached to Georgia at that time through Stalin, because Stalin came from Georgia. And during the Soviet Union, he was doing all sorts of messed up stuff, as you know, like attaching this country to that country. He's the major person who screwed up Ukraine, by taking Transcarpathia from Hungary and giving that to Ukraine. Lenin was the one that gave the Donbass to Ukraine, and Khrushchev, he's the one that gave the Crimea to Ukraine. But a lot of these other things, I think it was with Moldova and like Transnistria and that sort of an area, as well as maybe in Poland, I think, Galicia and all that. I think that was Stalin doing that. Stalin was doing all kinds of crazy stuff like that. And I think he was doing that so, it's sort of like what's going on now with George Soros, is to screw up everybody's identity. So you do not have any national identity, and you're all mixed in like that. So you can never raise any kind of dispute with whatever government is controlling you. But it's turned out to work out the opposite. And of course, they use that to their advantage in the opposite way. Very tricky, these politicians. So, and you see that Gorgeous George Soros is the one spearheading all of these migrants to flood into Europe and also into the United States from Mexico. And I guess that's why he doesn't like Trump so much, because Trump wants to put this wall there and stop all this mass immigration. And it's all been financially supported by old Gorgeous George there, giving these people, handing out their money for train tickets and all that, in Europe and anyway, to get them to go there. So anyhow, and this has been going on for quite a long time. Old Gorgeous George, what is he, 92 or 93 years old? I don't know. His son is going to take over. Alexander, I think, might be his name. Ooh, I don't know. But a lot of good people's names are Alexander, so I hope it's not Alexander. I don't know what his son's name is. But that's how that one goes. And but anyway, let's just see what happens here in the United Nations. And you have to hope that they're going to put it somewhere else. Somebody's got to start doing some heavy building, and then you have to build some quarters for all of these diplomats to be staying. It makes you wonder where it would be. It should be in Africa. Maybe it's Kazakhstan. Where are you going to put the new United Nations? In some country that will guarantee to obey laws and obligations of what the United Nations is supposed to be all about. And the U.S. has lost all that. Germany is losing all this stuff. What's really going on in the world, people? So this is like a movie. We're living in a movie. We're living in 1984, Brave New World. Soylent Green. I hope it doesn't get to that one. I don't want to be eating my neighbor. The Matrix, all of this stuff. I like all these kind of films because a lot of this stuff indicates about what's really going on in the world and maybe how far it can actually go. But that's all I'm going to say for right now. It's probably another long video. I'm sure it is. And if the algorithms brought you here, which probably not very likely, because I don't think the establishment likes what I have to say. If the algorithms brought you here and you like what I said, then you can subscribe. And if not, if you already subscribed, then at least push my ego button. I mean the like button. And I'll see you on the next one. And thanks very much for joining me. Bye.